All right, so let's move on to the next question, and that's about marking. So Zoe Fennell sent in a couple of questions around marking and who should actually do the marking. So I think there are two forms of opinion here. Either the winner marks the next match or the loser marks the next match. And I think UK Racquetball usually gets the winner to mark the next match. So why is that? And would you consider changing it?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question. I think it's one of those questions that's really easy to see kind of both sides to. Obviously, if the loser's marking the next match, then the winner can go away, have a stretch, get some food inside them, obviously prep for the next match, which is great. I think the main motivation for doing it the other way around, for seeing the winner to ref in racquetball, is that I think a lot of the ethos that we're trying to do is different to the squash world. So in the squash world, that's definitely what would happen. You'd have the loser of the match before ref in the next match, and because there's such a importance placed on winning and rankings and everything, that would mean that the winner would have plenty of time to go away and prep for the next match, and they would almost be the priority at that squash event. With kind of UK racquetball community, so Squash 57, what we want to do is to do something different. And like, I'm hoping that we've built a bit of a community that's around kind of loads of different people of loads of different abilities all coming together to enjoy a tournament. And I think with that, there's more of a emphasis that's placed on the enjoyment, but also on everybody being in it together, and there not being, big egos in an event the way that there are in the squash. So you'll see a kind of a national championship, someone like Tim Vale, who's won 10 tournaments, winning his first round, and then going to grab a marking pad and refereeing the next match on that court, no matter who it is and no matter what's happening. And I think that kind of ethos of bringing everyone together is kind of what we're all about. And I think if we went to the winner, being able to go off and stretch and have their own time, I think you kind of lose a little bit of that. And I suppose so it really is a bit of an ethos question. I think you can very easily see it from the other side. But yeah, I think this is it's really important for the community. I think it also works incredibly well. I think the winner is obviously on a bit of a high. They're much more likely to enjoy refereeing and to be okay with that, whereas a loser might be disappointed, and the last thing they want to go and do is to referee a match. So it kind of evens things out a little bit, and doesn't kind of compile defeat. You've just lost your match. Now go and grab the marking pad and stand there in the cold for 20 minutes.
So would you expect if we move forward to having national open events where people have traveled and maybe taking it a little bit more seriously, would you expect then to flip that and have the losers mark, or would you expect there to be full-time markers at events like those?
So I suppose at the national championships, there's a big debate about whether or not we were going to do this. So at the UK regional events, that's what we've always done since day one in 2010. And the nationals is obviously a different event, and you do have people traveling much further, and obviously people are taking it really seriously, and people have been training and working hard towards it, and that's obviously brilliant, because that's exactly what you want. Like, the purpose to this is these events is to motivate people to be training in their home clubs. So if people are putting in the work to get to those events, that's brilliant. That raises the number of people playing, and it raises everything about the game. And you can see that argument of kind of the more effort that someone's put into it, the more that they've traveled, should then you change that, refereeing around, or should you bring in the professional refs? And again, I think it's a question of the ethos, and it's a question of what, you're trying to build as a community. And I really like the idea that the winner refs the next match. I think it's one where I think it helps to bring people together. I think it helps to show that we're all, on a level playing field, and the main purpose for those events, no matter whether you've traveled, from Portugal, and we do have those guys, they're very popular and they head across to play a racquetball tournament. They're kind of treated just the same as everybody else. And whether you've got, Tim Vale playing one and he's won 10 national titles, or whether you have someone playing a tournament for the very first time, it's the same rule for both of them. And yeah, I mean, I think we're really lucky. I think the guys at the very top of the game embrace that. And I think they, you really see it. And I think that, helps to build this community. And I think quite a unique community in a racket sport that's very different to what you'll find in tennis or badminton or, anywhere else.
So that was a great segue, because you mentioned there both the nationals and the professional referees. So Zoe had a follow-up question, and that was, as we go into the nationals, there's a general concern that the refereeing will be different to the general marking that we get at the regionals. So you bring in the professional squash referees and they're going to mark things differently. So what can we do, or what are we doing to try and get a consistency around the marking and pitch it at the level that what we think will be beneficial to this game?
Yeah. There's a few challenges there. I think probably the most important thing again is the ethos of it. So what I don't think we want to get down to is too kind of rule orientated with a huge rule book, where we're trying to get people to learn all these rules before they referee, and then we've got people annoyed that people have made decisions that they're not happy with. So what we're trying to do, and this has been working on this with Patrick and John Cordeaux as well, is to build almost an ethos around refereeing, around what we're trying to do with it. And that's got to filter up all the way. So that's got to start those bottom levels in the UK racquetball tournaments and the inter-counties and local club level. And then it's got to go all the way up to the nationals and our international tournaments. And I don't think that should be refereed differently in any of those. I think that raises issues with the professional squash referees coming in to do the tournament. I think we've got to try and bring them on board with it. I think from the conversations we've had so far, I think they'll be very positive. And I think, again, it's one where we're trying to do something a little bit different with racquetball / squash 57. This isn't about reinventing squash or trying to be squash. I think the only value this can have is we're using the same facilities. The only value is to have a different game. Otherwise, we might as well just keep playing squash. So with that in mind, I think with the refereeing, we've set some core kind of objectives to it. We've set out our framework, and we're now working through kind of the different scenarios and making sure that framework fits for all those scenarios. When we do get to tournaments, I think the critical bit is going to be making sure that the professional referees know kind of what we're trying to do with that. And in fairness to them, they've been amazingly flexible in the past. So when we've had a nationals, I have kind of brought them together right at the start and just said, okay, remember, this isn't squash, it's much more let heavy, etc. And I think that it's great that they get on board. I think it does make their life difficult because it's not exactly what they're used to. So I think having this framework is going to really help. And also, kind of Patrick's been working really hard on putting this framework out on social media and getting people to interact with it, to go, what decision would you give? And to have a real look at that. And I think, right from the very start, when we began this process, we went, this needs to be a community process. There needs to be a build altogether. This is kind of what we want to do with that ethos. And I think, we are listening to those comments, and it's a very niche community. So when people are making those comments on the Squash 57 racquetball Facebook pages, we're seeing those comments, and they're helping to fuel our discussions when we're having this.
I certainly think I've noticed going to the nationals year after year when I'm not injured. I've noticed that the the referees who turn up in their red jackets and have their England squash emblems or whatever, they certainly seem to have softened their approach to the marking. Certainly 10 years ago, you were seeing strokes all over the place, and that's much rarer now. So they do a great job. And certainly as you get later into the tournament, if you're in a semi and you want to go and have just won a semi, you don't really want to be marking. It's great to have those guys around and filling in the gaps and doing the marking. So it does work well. And I think it has got a lot better since when we started doing this. And the marking sort of quizzes that we put out there, I think these are very relevant to what we're trying to achieve. And I'm certainly feeling at a WSF level a lot of enthusiasm for this sport globally. There are some really serious people with some serious responsibilities who are going to be pushing Squash 57 in their regions, and to have everybody with the tools to level set around how marking should be is going to be extremely important, because otherwise we're going to end up with people operating to different rules, and then we're going to have a clash in the middle. So I think it's very important to try and get that level set out there now.
Yeah, and I think that it's a really interesting balance, isn't it, to try and get some kind of rules that we're all kind of signed up to, but also not, being too dictatorial or being, too strict and taking away that fun and that relaxed atmosphere, which is what we want to achieve with Squash 57/racquetball. So yeah, I think it's been some really interesting discussions. And yeah, I think, me and Patrick both said right at the start of this, that it's a process, and it's not something where, we're going to be able to very quickly go, right, this is now the rules for Squash 57, if you like. This is going to be a, gradual build over the next few months. And hopefully, we will get, the community behind, and we can, put some really good stuff in place. So as Patrick said, make sure we don't have any clashes kind of 5 years, 10 years down the line, when hopefully we have some big international tournaments and we've got people who are playing different rules coming together. So I think it's really important we do it now. I think it's really important that it's a process and that we're all building it together. I think probably the back and forth, though, actually probably improves the flow and makes it more kind of keeps people involved a little bit more. I think like if it's a monologue of me talking.
Yeah, actually, I'm deliberately talking over you to see what that will sound like, because I don't know how the video will capture me talking over you. Will it like freeze everything, or how does it? I don't know. So I'm talking over you just not to be deliberately rude, but to see.
No, I think it will improve the flow, right? If it's